I'm so lucky that we are such a close family.
You know, we've got four amazing children. Nothing comes in the way of our family and nothing comes away in the way of our children.
Welcome to Headline to Heartline. Every door has a threshold, and the way we cross it matters. Today matters because a new report published on January 23, 2026, quietly shifts the emotional center of the Beckham family story. After days of headlines driven by Brooklyn Beckham's own words, People is now reporting, through sources close to David and Victoria Beckham, that they would take their son back in a minute and that they are afraid of permanently losing him. If you have only caught pieces of this online, here is the clear version, told calmly with the noise turned down. The Beckhams are one of the most recognizable celebrity families in the world. David Beckham, known globally for his football career, and Victoria Beckham, known first through pop culture and later through fashion and business. Their oldest child is Brooklyn Beckham, now married to actress Nicola Peltz Beckham. For a long time, the public image around them has been polished and close-knit, which is why the recent rupture has landed so hard. The first signs, as many people noticed, were not a dramatic statement, but a pattern. In 2025, online chatter grew after Brooklyn did not appear at several celebrations tied to David's 50th birthday, and he seemed absent from family moments where he used to be present. Then, late in 2025, social media activity became its own kind of clue. Reports spread that David and Victoria were no longer following Brooklyn on Instagram, and Brooklyn's brother Cruz publicly suggested the disappearance might have been caused by blocking, not an unfollow. None of that on its own proves motive, but it set the stage for what happened next. On January 19, 2026, Brooklyn posted a long series of messages on Instagram that moved the story from speculation to personal accusation. In his version, this was not simply a family disagreement or a temporary distance. He portrayed it as a long-running conflict where he says his parents cared more about maintaining an image than protecting the relationship. He also pushed back on the idea that his wife was controlling him, saying the opposite, that he felt controlled for much of his life and that distance has brought him peace and relief. If you appreciate this kind of comfy, clear news breakdown, please like the video and subscribe to the channel before you go. Brooklyn's posts included claims that reach back to his April 2022 wedding to Nicola in Palm Beach, Florida, at her family's estate, with hundreds of guests present. He said his mother canceled the plan to create Nicola's wedding dress at the last moment, forcing a last-minute change. He also described a moment that has been discussed for years in tabloids, but took on new life when he named it directly. He said a planned first dance with his wife was disrupted when singer Mark Anthony called him on stage, and his mother, Victoria, was the one waiting to dance with him. Brooklyn said he felt humiliated by what happened in front of the guests, and he framed it as a symbol of how he believes major moments were redirected away from his marriage and back toward the family spotlight. People has separately reported additional details from a wedding performer about how awkward and emotional that moment was, including Nicola being in tears, which adds texture even though it still does not settle what anyone intended. Brooklyn also made a serious allegation about identity and control. He claimed his parents pressured him to sign away rights connected to his name before the wedding, something he says would have affected him, his wife, and their future children. And he described a pattern he believes was meant to undermine his relationship, including his claim that women from his past were repeatedly invited into their orbit in ways that made him and Nicola uncomfortable. On top of that, he gave his account of trying to see his father around the time of those 50th birthday celebrations, saying he traveled to London but felt shut out unless the meeting happened in a context with press attention, and later that a meeting was offered only if Nicola was not present. From Brooklyn's perspective, this is a story about boundaries and mental health, about choosing a quieter life over a public one, and about refusing to perform closeness for cameras when closeness is not being felt. From the parents' side, the public has had far less to hold on to because David and Victoria have not directly addressed the allegations in detail. However, David did speak publicly in a way many interpreted as indirect during an appearance on CNBC's Squawk Box from Davos, where he discussed the power of social media for good and bad and said children are allowed to make mistakes and that sometimes you have to let them make those mistakes to learn. It wasn't a point-by-point response, but it signaled that the family understands how high the stakes are when private conflict plays out on public platforms. Now we get to today's breaking element. People's report, published on January 23, 2026, quotes a source saying David and Victoria are prepared to welcome Brooklyn anytime he wants to reunite with them, and that they would take him back in a minute. The same reporting says the parents were extremely upset by Brooklyn's posts, that they love him and are horrified by the situation, and that representatives did not respond to a request for comment. Another source says the parents believe time will heal this and adds a key practical detail. The report claims Brooklyn and Nicola do not speak directly with David or Victoria right now, and communication happens only through mediators. That is a very different texture than the story many people have been carrying this week. It doesn't prove Brooklyn is wrong, and it doesn't prove his parents are right. What it does is introduce a second reality alongside his, one where the parents are presented as wanting reconciliation and feeling afraid, while still staying largely silent in their own names. This is also where it helps to stay careful with language. Brooklyn is making allegations about intentions and patterns inside a family, and People is relaying what sources say the parents feel and want. Those are not court findings. They are competing narratives unfolding in public, and the truth could include pieces of both. The social impact is bigger than celebrity curiosity because many people recognize the core tension even without fame. What happens when family loyalty is tied to public appearance, when conflict is managed through image instead of conversation, and when adult children set boundaries that parents experience as rejection. Add social media to that, and you get something that escalates fast because every post becomes evidence, every silence becomes a statement, and millions of strangers become a jury. So where does that leave the story tonight? As of today, January 23, 2026, the clearest update is this. Brooklyn has publicly described deep hurt and says distance has helped him find peace. And People is reporting that David and Victoria, through sources, would welcome him back immediately and believe time could bring him home, even though direct communication is reportedly not happening. If anything changes, it will likely come through one of two doors, either a public statement that addresses specific claims or a private conversation that never needs to be public at all. Thank you for spending this time with me, and if you want more calm, clear updates that connect the headline to the heartline, please subscribe to the channel and like the video before you go. Goodbye. May we all cross our own thresholds with a little more care than the cameras ever capture.